Welcome to the Port Orchard City Finance Committee meeting for March 19th, 2024. In attendance, we have council members Fred Chang, John Morrissey, Mark Trenary, and from the city staff, we have Noah Crocker.
Thank you, Chairman Trenary. Hopefully you can see my screen here, which should be displaying the agenda for tonight's meeting. As I kind of emailed out, I think this will be a fairly short meeting. I didn't have anything of deep substance to talk about, but I thought it made sense to, since this was our second meeting of the year, let's continue it so we stay in a rhythm. In the future, if I have a light agenda and you guys don't feel the need to meet and talk about the finances and sales tax, then I'm happy to cancel. But I thought for our second meeting, let's keep it, and we can keep it short if we need to.
Good choice.
So for tonight, I'm going to start off with our sales tax report. Hopefully I'm going to zoom in here. So for February, we actually had good numbers. You can see here we collected $723,000, which is about $40,000 more than our year-to-year comparable over 2023. That puts us in a positive position when we look at actual growth, about 1%. Again, only 2 months into this fiscal year.
And as a reminder, those are December's dollars that come in, right?
Correct. Yep. The sales tax is always trailing by 3 months. So those would be December's dollars, if I did my math right.
But still positive over 2023, which is good.
Yes, so that's really positive. We like to see that. Again, when we look at the budget, again, we are conservative budgeters in how we approach our sales tax forecasts. So we're approximately 20% over our budget and are actually so far experiencing 1% real growth. Hopefully that continues and actually increases, but 5% for the month, 1% for the year. So good numbers to start the year. As we scroll down, look at REIT. Again, REIT varies based on real estate activity. Year to date, we collected $104,000 for the period of February. When we compare it to February of 2023, it's about 33,000 less, so 24% less than. Overall, 3% less than 2023 year to date, which only equates out to $7,000. So not anything to be concerned about right now, but we just kind of monitor it and see how it's going to perform over time. When we look at the budget, we're currently sitting on 4% of our budget. Overall, though, when we look at as a percentage of our biennial period, we're sitting on 68%, which is good. Again, a lot of that is because of our year one REIT coming in higher than budgeted. But as a biennial budget, that puts us in a stronger position when we're only 2 months into our second 12-month period to have roughly 70% of our revenue collected and available and allocated through the budget. So that's all good indicators at this point, and we'll just continue to watch real estate activity over the coming months. So any discussion or questions on this document?
I just had a quick question. Noah, does that work the same as sales tax? It's always a 2-month lag, so those are December numbers.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, the next document I wanted to kind of go over is I sent out the monthly budget report. We can either go through that, but now you've had kind of over the weekend to sit on that. I did want to highlight our ending fund balance. Again, we track this just to see how we're doing, say how we feel about our liquidity needs and our fund balances. Again, as you kind of scroll through this report, you'll see all our balances are very healthy. $18 million in our general fund. $4 million in our street fund. Not concerned about stabilization again because we don't spend out of that. I look to our other operating funds. Our water operating fund is in roughly $4.7 million. Capital continues to collect and grow, so that's good. Again, that's what we talked about last week is capital facility charges. Those are those fees that builders and developers pay when they pay their permit and they try to connect to our water system. They pay those capital facility charges and we deposit into our fund 413 for our water capital plan. Similarly, we'll have our storm capital facility, but again, we don't have storm capital facility charge at this time. We do have one planned for April. I'm going to talk about that at the later part of this meeting. Our sewer operating, again, strong, healthy balance, $8.3 million. And our sewer capital, strong, healthy balance, 8.2, which is good, again, as we have a lot of large capital projects going forward right now. And that has a mix of the CFC component as well as debt. So we like to see healthy balances, which means the permitting is still coming in, the permitting revenue is still coming in. So no concerns to raise, just basic.
Where,
Good.
where on that page, Noah, would I see with all the talk about the park fees? Where's our
Yeah.
balance on that? Where
So
does that-
we will come back to that, but I will
Okay.
point out the
Okay.
fund. The fund is the impact fee fund. So the total balance in that fund is $8.9 million, but the impact fees include parks and transportation.
Okay.
So it's not, I think the majority of that balance is transportation impact
Transportation,
fees.
yeah.
Yeah.
And quick question, Noah, on 107, I guess that's lodging tax, and is that also from December?
Yes, yeah. Generally, the state lags in all their receipts because, again, as we receive the money, right, the state receives the money from local businesses and entities. They receive it into their system, balance it, and then remit it to local governments on a timely basis, which could be 2 to 3 months later.
So no, on that Fund 111, the impact mitigation, the parks impact has only been, what, a year and a half now? Since we increased the
we-
park impact fees?
We had a small impact. We had a small park impact fee before we increased it in 2022. So a part of that body of work was we really took a hard look at our park system and our park needs.
Right.
And what an appropriate capital facility charge would be. The other parking fee, it was just I don't know when that was ever changed or installed. It was an old one, just kind of had been there a long time, and it wasn't very much money.
Okay, thanks.
There might be something in the budget report, since you guys are bringing up the park impact fees. We talk about sales tax rate. I can highlight here. This isn't going to give me a great view, but you can see that when we began the biennium, we had $800,000 in park impact fees, and so far through this biennial period, we've collected $2.5 million. Again, that's 23, and so far in 2024. Again, we plan to spend out 2.3 million, and we've soft obligated the remaining $1 million for those projects that we know or anticipate we're going to be doing. In the month of February in particular, though, we highlight here that we did collect $125,000 in park impact fees. You can see we collected 131 of transportation, and we do collect school district impact fees, but we serve as a pass-through agency for the school district. So we collect it and then immediately turn around and remit it.
Do you have any idea what those projects are?
On which part?
The parks that we have
Yes.
obligated?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and we can go there. I did have that on my agenda here, impact fee obligations.
Okay, perfect.
So I wanted to show you guys that part. So it sounds like you're interested. I thought you might be at some point. I wanted to show you kind of what this table looks like under the obligated expenses. Okay, so that was
Yep.
my plan for that
Perfect.
piece. So if there's no other questions on the monthly budget report, we can talk about the storm drainage. I'll give you a quick update.
Good.
So if you recall, a few months ago, we had done, well, actually a while ago, last year, we had done the storm comp plan update. And in that there were rate recommendations as well as capital facility charge recommendations. Those were adopted in December of 2023 with an effective date of April 1st, 2024. So staff have been working through the code and the implementation process of those fees, the capital facility fees, as well as doing the rates. And what we heard from council is that they wanted to ensure that there was a strong public outreach process to notify both the customers that storm rates were going up, but also the building industry that the CFCs were, there would be a new established CFC. So what we are proposing to do next week is delay the implementation to June 1st. We have not had an opportunity to do that building outreach with the building industry. And we are just now able to get notice on our utility bills notifying customers of the storm rate increase. So we don't feel like we've done adequate public notification to implement here in about 2 weeks. The other reason this came about is because we, again, were reading over the code and walking through the implementation of it. Again, the CFC for storm is something new. And what's unique about the storm CFC is under sewer and water, a builder is literally connecting to our system, right? There is actual pipes that they're connecting to. With storm drainage, you don't necessarily have that. And so the process at which they would normally pay, and we could verify that they paid and are connecting is at the building permit process. So it's a little bit different for storm in that they are not connecting, and normally they would get a certificate of occupancy, which means that they paid their fee and they've connected to the system, therefore they can go forward. So we've had to work on the actual code language to allow us to implement the fee administratively at the point when they're doing their building permit, rather than when they would pay their sewer connection or water connection. So it's slightly different timing, but it's the only way we can verify with DCD and Public Works that they do need storm, they've paid for storm, and all three departments are in agreement and can release the COP. So a couple tweaks that we were going to make to the language, and so next week, Dennis is going to bring forward an initiative to delay the increase in implementation till June, and then we'll probably come back in about 2 weeks with some clarifying language on the implementation of the rates as well as the CFC. The other piece of the rates I think is worth talking about is we as a staff were discussing the implementation again of how the code was written, and we think the intent is to charge the rates by ISUs. And we would define one ISU to equal 3,000 square feet. So that's 3,000 square feet of impervious surface would equal one ISU. And that's what the ratepayers would pay. So if you're a single family residence and you've been determined to have one ISU, you'd pay the base fee of, I think it's $14 now, I'd have to go look, but you pay one ISU. If you're a larger home, say a duplex, we would actually do a calculation. We'd actually go out and measure the property and make sure that you fall within that 3,000 ISU. If you're above the ISU, say you're 5,000, you would now be responsible for paying for two ISUs. Because again, 3,000 square feet is one ISU, but no less than, because we have to have a minimum number.
ISU stands for.
Let me grab code real quick.
Something stormwater unit.
Okay, that I was figuring stormwater unit, but I was like, individual stuff or.
No, it's a good question. I keep thinking it's impervious surface, but it means something else, or it's defined as something else. Impervious ground cover IGC. Oh, here it is. Impervious surface unit. Oh, good job, Mark. Good job. What was I called? Impervious surface? Yeah. So that's how the way I was thinking of it.
No,
So
it's 3,000 the minimum, so we would charge at least or
yes,
the rate for 3,000. Okay.
yes, yeah. 3,000 is the minimum. It's coming up to. So if you're at 1,500, you're the equivalent of one ISU up to 3,000 square feet.
And then we're rounding up then, so 3,050 square feet would pay two.
Correct. Yep.
And did I hear you right? That would be $28.
I will look while we're on this call.
And while you're looking that up, I will say, great job to the city. when you feel like we didn't do enough outreach, I think I would absolutely be in favor of delaying this. I think it's important that we communicate appropriately, as well as I might suggest that we either provide a presentation or additional documentation to our friends at the Kitsap Builders Association, who can help disseminate some of that information to those who might be impacted.
So effective, and now we're going to change, it's going to be June. One ISU will become 1834.
So it's not a huge
So
impact.
No, and we were more or less administratively trying to align how we treat the ISUs for the CFCs with how we treat ISUs for rates. So it'll be a minor adjustment to how we treat it. There should be no adverse impacts that we would anticipate to the users. There might be a slight less revenue from the city standpoint once we kind of go to this measuring model for anything above single family residence, because we do have duplexes and triplexes right now, which we have a different approach where they kind of pay additional charges for each unit. And so we're going to move away from this unit model to actually measuring the impervious surface for storm drainage.
So now how do our rates compare? And then how does our modeling compare to cities within Kitsap County and or our local Kitsap community area? The peninsula.
Oh, that's a bigger conversation. We can certainly revisit it and pull back the kind of prior storm presentation because we looked at all that. We presented all that back in December. So if you're interested, we can definitely bring that back. Just again, thinking that brand new council, not everyone was here at the time of that conversation. I don't think it's a bad idea to bring some of this stuff back.
Noah, are we really expecting all properties to be measured?
So the compromise we made with Public Works and DCD is that if it's a single family resident, meaning a single unit on the property, we're going to assume it's one ISU. Anything that has additional units on, we will measure. And again, we already do that for commercial properties. So it really became only properties in our current system that were duplexes or triplexes. And so then we looked at the count of those types of building facilities, and we didn't think there wasn't a significant number. We thought there was maybe 100 to 110 properties we'd actually have to go measure to implement this. And Public Works graciously offered to have their intern do that as a summer project to do that.
One more question, and I'm sorry if we already talked about it previously, Noah, but are we assuming with the 3,000 number that lots are of a specific size? For example, if we have a smaller lot, do we ever care about the percentage of impervious surface on the whole lot as opposed to just, 3,000 square feet in an ISU?
We are not for the sake of billing in CFCs. So that's a good question, Fred. Again, I think we want to revisit kind of the stormwater comp plan and how that was developed. I think that would be more of an answer for Public Works than it is for the finance director on how impervious surfaces are measured and what seems reasonable.
You don't know that off the top of your head?
There's schools of thought of how to approach it. And right now with the staff resources we have, we're trying to take a mainstream vanilla, something that we can implement and do. But other cities have approached it differently. I'm not sure if that's a route we want to go because there would be expenses to kind of fine tuning that. And then it would change our storm plan. So there's a snowball effect as you kind of change the denominator of the ISUs. But for the rates and the CFCs, we thought it made sense to, again, bring those in alignment, that if you are one ISU for the CFC standpoint, because we measured in you're 3,000 or less square feet, that you would fall under the class 1 ISU for the ratepayer side. And if you're 2 on the CFC side, then you should be 2 on the ratepayer side. The way it's currently structured, you could be technically a single ISU on CFC and may have to pay 2 rates. But that's based on our current structure. Because on the current structure, again, the rates are billed by unit. So a duplex has 2 units, so we bill you the base fee twice. Even though if you were to build that duplex now, and we measured it, and we said, hey, that it really equates to 1 ISU on the CFC front, they'd pay 1 CFC, but then currently you'd be billed 2 unit rates. Does that make sense? So we met as staff and said, hey, does that make sense? Is that fair? We think it makes more sense to have those 2 measurables in alignment. And if we can measure, and then it's more defensible.
I think it's good to be fair, but I'm also wondering if we're being effective. If for example, in the county, you have to provide for a drain field, for example, for your septic of a certain space. And I'm just thinking theoretically, if we allow people to build on smaller lots, and I don't see any reason why not to, are we going to be concerned about their percentage of impervious? And this is, I'm sorry, I'm going off topic. This is probably a question I can ask Nick or maybe Dennis, because it's sort of a planning question, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a public work and a planning thing. I would definitely
Okay.
raise that with the utility committee, because it's really about storm runoff and how we treat that. And that's really a Dennis and Jackie conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
But so my update was expect something next week to delay, and then expect something in about 2 weeks, cleaning up the language to make it more administratively implementable.
Okay.
Now, the last topic I had on here is the impact fee obligations. So John kind of jumped right on this, which is good. I'm going to pull this. Sorry, I didn't build a presentation for this one. I'm just going straight to the spreadsheet. I tend to do that a little bit more with the finance committee. I've found that this group tends to like the details and can absorb it differently.
Mhm.
Not that the full council can't, but just the conversation flows a little easier. So I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet that I've used when we're measuring projects, and then we're talking about what's budgeted. Even when a director says, "Hey, we got this project and we think it's going to over what we have budgeted now. Where do we have the funding to do this?" I use this spreadsheet to help me keep track of what projects we budgeted, what we've committed funds for, and any future revenues that come in, we would continue to commit that to that project so we can complete the project. The one thing we don't want to do is half fund a project and not complete it. So that's why I always preach, hey, let's stick with the projects we got, let's complete them, and then we can move on, both from a staffing resource, but also the revenue side. I don't want to get too far out over our skis on any funding source. So again, this is
You
a
have to
draft.
get out too far over your skis because it's a sticky day on the snow.
It is. So I do want to show you one thing first, because you had asked about the balances. Now this is a bit much. Let me go to 2024. This might make it a little cleaner. So this is my impact fee fund summary. Okay, you can see we'll start with February. February we had $8.8 million in this impact fee fund. And you'd asked about the park impact fee balance. So for park impact fees, we have a total of $2.3 million of cash and investments for our park impact fees. The remainder is transportation with McCormick Woods Transportation. We have this Bayside plot, which is a restricted source of funding from a developer for specific transportation improvements. And then we have our transportation impact fee fund, which has roughly majority of the money at $5.8 million. So I wanted to show you that because you guys had asked what's the balance between the three. So you can see I'm identifying, tracking all the different impact fees, even though it's within one fund.
And now, before you switch away, I saw schools that we're just simply passed through. That's in and out every month.
In and out every month. Yep. So we collected 35 this month. You'll see an expense go out next month through your AP register of 35, 641.58.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we try to get in the nearest packet As soon as we record, close month, we know the number's good, got the check. So now the piece that you guys see, so you guys see this, right? And again, it shows beginning fund balance. So all this information funnels through these tabs, the revenue collected, expenses budgeted, the obligations. So for impact fees, I'm gonna go down here. Here's what we have obligated at the impact fee fund. So there's various projects. Let me go back here. This Bayside Plot SEPA mitigation funds that we received. Again, this is specifically for Anderson Hill Roundabout. So in that agreement, they said, hey, these funds are to be used for these purposes. And one of the purposes in that agreement was Anderson Hill Roundabout. So I can't use that impact fee money for all and any projects.
And that's part of the agreement where they're gonna put in the one at McCormick Woods Drive, but then they're gonna offset that cost over at Anderson Hill. Wasn't that the trade-off?
Well, that was a concept that was
Okay.
being floated. This is actually older money than that.
Okay.
This is money we received. I can't.
Okay.
I'm not sure when we received it, but we received a few years ago, and it was targeted for the Anderson Hill Roundabout improvements. But it's different than the subjects you were just talking about, John. That was another proposal.
That was different. Okay.
That wasn't it. No.
And I think that got pulled off the table because of these specific funds that couldn't be transferred, wasn't it?
Yeah, when staff looked at the project, I think Nick had a very polished response to it. But we looked at the trade-offs of switching those roundabouts and come up with the funding for it. And at this time, we did not think it was in the city's best interest to do that, both from a staffing standpoint and what it would entail with credit swaps and funding swaps. It just didn't seem to pencil for us at this time. So staff isn't recommending we go forward with that. McCormick Woods, so we used to have, this is a kind of a legacy item. We used to have a specific McCormick Woods transportation impact fee amount, but over the last few years, we did some negotiating with the McCormick on the transportation impact fees, and we were able to blend this money in with our overall transportation impact fee funds. I only keep it separate because you know, I don't have to, I guess I could blend it in. I'm trying really to spend that money first so we can go away with tracking it as McCormick Transportation Impact Fee because it's a legacy fund. It's not restricted anymore per the agreements we've had in place with McCormick, but at one point it was restricted. So we do have that money earmarked for Anderson Hill Roundabout, as well as future payments to the land trust and the McCormick Communities Agreement. So we have certain current agreements with McCormick Land Trust when we annex the property and absorb some of that infrastructure to repay them. And that was in place, I think we called it the 99 agreement. And then we have another McCormick Transportation Agreement in which they get a certain dollar amount back. So again, I'm using that money to essentially pay McCormick back as recordings occur. For the park impact fees, I'm gonna go Mill C here. Currently, I keep, as a part of the community center project, I'm allocating $270,000 for the LEED certification. There's I think it's 500,000 total for that. So as we receive again parking impact fee money, I continue to obligate it for those upcoming expenses should the community center go forward.
And that's an acceptable use of those park impact fees.
Correct. Yeah. A couple years ago when we updated the community parks plan, DCD updated the parks plan and put in the community event center, and so it became an eligible expense for those parking impact fees.
Okay.
You'll see here I have some money in here for Givens Court. Again, this is obligated, not budgeted. Again, with Givens Court, we have a grant from the state Recreation RCO grant, and we are also anticipating receiving funding from Rotary through an ILA, which we haven't received yet. So I have cautiously said, that's great. I hope we do receive the funds. If not, we're designing now, we're moving forward with this Givens Park based on the RCO grant And if by the time we get to construction, it's more than what we had originally anticipated, I wouldn't expect the city to go back to Rotary and say, hey, can you please raise some more funds? I think at that point, the city is taking on the risk and therefore the obligation to complete the project. So I am cautiously kind of setting aside funding for that project as it kind of moves forward. The other piece here is the Waterfront Plaza and Enhancement Project. I put a note here. Currently, we think it's about $2,008,000. And that could be an old figure, John, so don't quote me on that one. But the idea is, I know we need at least $2 million. So I'm going to continue to set aside funds obligating the parking by fee money to get to that number. Now, again, if at some point the whole downtown, Port Orchard Plaza, Community Events Center project doesn't come to fruition, then we would have these funds available for what other future projects, park needs we have. But at this point, the city is committed to making that the priority, the plaza as well as the community event center. And so I'm continually allocating these funds in hopes that we will collect enough over time by the time we get there in 25 or 26. I think that's still the timeline. So that's on the park side. Any questions on those obligations at this point? You can see it's mostly for the community center and Gibbons Park.
So when I'm doing that add up, like, are we just saying 2.7 on that other, because we know we want $2 million for this waterfront plaza? The numbers here in this column that I'm looking at don't add up to the 2.7.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Let's go further up here. This would be 1.59 thousand, 1,050,000, we'll call it 160,000, 1,060,000. On the summary tab, you'll see it's 1,060,000 that's obligated. And what we have is 2.3 million budgeted. So then we scroll up here to actually what we have budgeted. We have actually, this is what council action has taken. So that's the distinction I'm making. Budgeted is actually council action taken. We have it budgeted. We are spending it. It is the current biennial period. Obligating is setting money aside in anticipation of future spending needs.
Okay. So budgeted is we've already passed something. Obligated is we know it's coming, but we haven't actually taken action.
Correct. It's a planning tool, management tool, but I have not, the council has not done anything with it.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I know these for future reference as the
No, it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, if tonight council said, hey, we hate the Gibbons Sport project, we're going to stop that. And that's going to be the council decision. And you guys, we don't take action at study session, but we want staff to bring something forward next week and action was taken, I would say, okay, let's free this money up then. Yep. It's not needed anymore. Council has said no to that project. But up above here, we have budgeted for the McCormick Splash Pad, $870,000. We've budgeted for the Port Orchard Plaza design phase of $792,000. We've budgeted for lead, again, Amendment 9 of our mini agreements, $230,000. What's this? And then the GluMac lead agreement contract, 1823 for another $54,000. So we can see under parking by fee, all but the $870,000 is committed towards design phase of the community event center and moving that project forward. And so hence that kind of helps me planning wise. I can see where council has made a priority of real budget and coming behind it, like this is what we anticipate we'll need in the future. So that's generally my approach as we kind of work together as with the council. I identify what your priorities are, and then if we say like, and this came up the other day that we're gonna move forward with 30% design. Well, 30% design, that's one decision point. We need to fund that. But if the council then chooses to move to the next phase of 60% design or 90% design, we know we're gonna need more funding. So at that point, I would highlight that as a priority to move us from 30% design to 100% design, and I would start allocating funds that way under the obligation tab. Not budgeted because they've only approved the 30% design, and after the 30% design, they terminate the project, that's fine. Then that would freeze up the obligation money for other projects.
I'm tracking.
Okay, good.
No, it sounds like we have unlimited funds that you can figure out a way to pay for whatever we want.
I hope it doesn't sound like that. That's that's not the intent. No, and again,
No,
the
and I'm
reason,
impressed.
yeah, the reason we do this planning is because we do have lots of projects, and I don't want to spend the money twice. So again, if I take a simple project, moving from we want to do design. Everybody says we want to do design. We're only at 30% now. Due to timing wise, in 2024, we're only get 30% design done this fiscal year. I know 25, 26, I'm going to build a budget with getting design from 30% to 100%. So I'm going to need that money next budget. So by obligating it now, I can pull it off the table for council and mayor and say, hey, no, we don't have that money now. You can't go spend that again. Otherwise, if I didn't do that, council and mayor would go spend the money. And next budget period, they'd say, all right, let's move to the next phase of design, 30 to 100. And I would say, we don't have any money because we spent it all on something else now.
Now he sounds like the finance guy.
So yeah, not unlimited. We have to be careful with our scarce resources. On the transportation, again, you'll see we budget for Salmonberry, Pottery, Old Clifton, Bethel Lincoln, which is now moving forward. So that's great. Some money for salaries and benefits. I tend to start a budget without money budgeted for salary benefits, but I usually come back and true that up at the end of the first fiscal year, and then maybe 3 quarters into our biennial budget. So I don't necessarily always know how much time staff are going to put to each individual project. And you can see the dollars aren't very large, 14,000. So that's why it's usually a cleanup, true up effort later in the fiscal year or later in the biennial period, once I have real dollars of how much money they've spent towards a particular project. And then we have our, and this is the one I always have tough saying, TIP 1.19, SB 162A design. Sometimes I don't think we've got started on that project yet. And then Sydney Safe Routes to School, 62,000. So that's what we've really budgeted. And then again, down below in the obligations, hey, perfect example, 1.8 to 1.9, getting us from 60 to 100% design. I'm anticipating at least needing $970,000 at least. So I know we're in the phase of 1 to 60% design. That's what we're working through right now. But that next phase is coming, and that is, the Bethel corridor. That's been a high priority for the city. So we start to set money aside to ensure that by the time, hey, we get their next biennial budget, we'll have some funds available to spend to get that complete. Similarly, we know that there's right-of-way acquisition costs for that area. So I'm setting aside funds for those. This might not be the exact dollar, but I'm starting to set money aside as we learn more about what we think those costs are going to be. Anderson Hill Roundabout, we've talked about that, funding that project forward. Bethel Lincoln Vault. This is kind of an interesting one. Must have been a year and a half ago. We thought there was going to be a significant change order, and there still could be, for a storm water drainage vault under Bethel Lincoln. So we started, again, putting some funds aside in case that does come true. At this point, we're not sure. Once we go to bid for construction, I think we just advertised. Once we get going on construction, then we'll know what this real value is. And I guess that's true with a lot of these obligations. They're really placeholders. I'm just trying to build in some flexibility for each one of the projects so that we can fund them. And so we have a little bit of money here for Safe Routes to School, 114, design costs, 43,000, and then a little bit more for Pottery non-motorized. And then after we've obligated that, I'm really saying, look, we've obligated it all at this point. I don't have any funds to spend on anything else.
Okay, that's what I was waiting to hear.
Yeah, if these weren't zeros, I would say, yeah, we do have funds to spend. Or if you guys terminated a project and freed up, then I would have a surplus balance here, and then we could explore what future projects you guys want to look at. Do you want to move forward on? And then the mayor would say, hey, do we have funding for it? And I say, yeah, we got some funding for it. But at this point, we don't, because we're still trying to make sure that we have enough funding for all these other ones.
So do we owe the school district 1.1 million?
No, we really don't. This is a budgeted value. Again, we took a standard approach to our impact fees. So as they pay their impact fee for transportation, they're going to pay impact fee for schools. So we had this forecast. And so we put in the budget what we think based on the permitting forecast, what we should receive, and then would have to remit to the school district. We don't owe them this. We only owe what we collect. And that's why the other spreadsheet actually is more important for us as far as tracking that we are actually remitting the funds each month. Or yes, each month for year 2024.
So they're projected to receive that amount as it comes in, that 1.1 million or whatever it was.
Yeah, and again, remember, budget is spending authority. So I can't remit funds to the school district unless I have spending authority. So the 1.8 million is what we projected we would collect and remit over the biennial period. But I only remit what we collect.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, and I can see, so for 2023, for example, we collected $579,000 and remitted $579,000. So maybe our projection was a little bit aggressive, but you know, 600,000, another 600,000, only leaving about 600,000 of capacity. But again, we only remit when we collect.
Do you send us this file? This is a great file, by the way. This is the stuff. I mean, I don't know about y'all. I used to be a banker. This is what I'm used to working with. So
Let me check with Charlie because I typically don't send out working files that we use to manage.
yeah, I don't want any. Yeah, if you got to save a
Okay.
separate copy, I don't want to like put in numbers and have it mess up something you guys actually use. But yeah, this isn't exactly what I was looking for.
Hey, Noah,
Yeah.
I want to step back to Parks Impact, and I see Dennis popped in here. I don't know if he's with us or not, but he's on the meeting. That 870,000 we've got for the splash pad, that retrofit, we're completed with that, aren't we? That
Yeah,
hasn't
yeah,
been completed?
yeah. We are at punch list items now. But again, this is what's in the budget. It's not reflecting what we actually spend. This is spending authority.
Right.
But we
Somewhere
are at
along the lines recently, I heard that there was some freeze damage this winter. I don't know it to be accurate yet because I haven't heard it from a source that I would say is absolute.
So it hasn't been confirmed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I hadn't heard that. I haven't heard that yet, so Dennis might not be on. So that's what I had for you tonight. I guess there was a little bit more meat once we kind of put it together. I thought that would be helpful though, because you guys do get those monthly budget reports. And that's how I originally built them up. And so you can always kind of understand at least what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. If we could see that once a month, I think that'd satisfy me.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's very helpful.
Is there anything just for the good of the order? Otherwise, we can adjourn early. Actually, at this point, we're not too early.
You know, only other thing I'd say, no, I know we talked about this last week, just future agenda items, right? Like
Mhm.
what are potential funding opportunities for the city, right? What haven't we maxed out on? Not to say that we would or wouldn't. What are we maxed out on? Just making sure that we know what tools are at our fingertips, especially as almost half of us are new.
Yeah.
There may be conversations that some have had in the past, but we didn't know that. Maybe we all feel differently now. I don't know.
Yeah.
As an
Let me.
example, John. Oh, go ahead. No.
I was gonna say, let me think on how to put something together for that.
And as an example, I don't know if this is what you're thinking, John, but I sent a retreat topic to Rob. And one of them was just, a review of what is our bonding capacity and how much of it have we used. I know not to be discussed right now, but that's something that I thought might be interesting just for council as a whole.
Yeah, because I think especially some of my newer peers have to understand, if you use it all now, that means whatever you need in the future may not be available to be used, right? So if I buy the biggest house available to me now, I may be stuck with that house from now into the future, no matter what, because I spent all my money at one point.
Well, and we've got so many projects in the works right now. We don't know, we don't know exactly what kind of cost overruns we're going to be looking into. So I'd lean very much towards the conservative side on trying to bring some more projects available. Let's get some dirt in the shovel, get a couple things done, and get them done within budget or slightly over, and then see where we go here once we get a couple of these projects off the list. Would be my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm just like, let's give everybody, I always use this analogy. I never want to commit at a buffet until I've seen everything that's on the table, right? And
That's a nice way to put it.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say is, what's everything on the table mean, right? Because we
Yeah.
don't want to eat all the food. We know that there are going to be others behind us, but we need to know what's on that buffet.
But John, some of the buffets already been committed to. You're eating it whether you want it or not.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, 100%.
And the only other theme which is the one that I think possible discussion is, we always hear that future costs are going to be higher. So, is there a point at which you might want to commit to something sooner than later? I don't know. I don't like spending, what we don't have. But I think it's just a theoretical question of, put things in perspective. So that's why I sent that question to Rob for discussion at the retreat.
No,
Yeah,
I think
I would hate.
good topic. It's a good topic because, you're right, Fred. Money's not getting any cheaper. Construction jobs aren't getting any lower month cost either. So, if there's things that we might be able to leverage to move ahead on projects that we've already got long range plans in and we're partway through them, I think that's something we need to look at anyways.
Other than that, how's the third floor treating you?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's very tight. Very tight and wonderful space up here.
Kind of noisy
You don't
too,
need
isn't it?
phones up there, right? You don't need phones because you can just holler across the hall.
I just wave through the glass window and just have big open meetings all the time. So no, that's
Have
fine.
you got new-
We're managing through it. The worst is when we have someone jackhammering and sometimes people on the end of this phone line can hear that. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, yep, that's the jackhammer that we're listening to. Just wait 5 minutes and then I can hear you, So it's
Well, is
under
there anything
construction.
else?
We're working on it.
Anything else on the meeting agenda? Or good of the order? All right, I'd say we should close this meeting and look forward to seeing everybody here in about, what, hour and a half?
Hour and a half.
For council. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna